Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Gita Satsang for today. So let us start with Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatakleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha रामानुजदयापात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशिकम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुग्म व्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us take up our shlokas for today. So today we will take up the next three shlokas, that is shloka number 13, 14 and 15. So in the 13th shloka, Krishna continues to tell Arjuna, he says, Sarva karmani manasa samyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. The embodied beings who are self-controlled and detached reside happily in the city of 9 gates, free from thoughts that they are the doers or the cause of anything. So here Krishna is talking about the people who live in a particular manner, in a particular place. What is this Navadvara Pura? What is this? Navadvara means 9 doors. And Puram means any place, a town or a city. So who are these people who live happily in this Navadvara Pura? That is what Krishna is explaining. So what does he refer to as the Navadvara Pura? That refers to this physical body. Now we know that in our body, we have organs which connect this body with the outside world. So they are like the gates, they are like the doors which open out to the outside, which connect this body with the external world. So those 9 gates or 9 doors are the 2 ears, the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, and the 2 organs of excretion. So this body which has these 9 doors is referred to as Navadvarapura. So if this Navadvarapura is the Deha, then the Dehi is the person, is the Jivatma who is dwelling inside the Deha. So Deha is the external structure, the body. And who is it who is dwelling inside this Deha? It is the Jivatma. So that Jivatma, the embodied soul, is referred to as the Dehi. So what Krishna is telling Arjuna here is that these people, these souls who have a body, who are these persons who live in this city of 9 gates, if they are able to live with self-control and detached from the actions, then they are able to live happily. Now, we have seen so many times that all around us, and many times we also suffer from so many illnesses and difficulties which have come because of this body that we are inhabiting. So, if there is something which happens to the body, we feel that I am suffering. In reality, the Atma who is within this body has no suffering. That Atma is not attached to this body. But what happens is, because this Atma has been residing continuously inside this body, it feels that whatever it has got used to that habit, it has got used to the idea that whatever is happening to the body is happening to itself. So if somebody can be detached, be detached means what? If they learn to think in such a way that whatever is happening, whatever actions are being done, they are done by the body. They are not done by me, the Jivatma. The Jivatma has no action attached to it. So if you start thinking that this body is the doer, then we learn to give up the sense of doership. So we attach that doership to the body. And if we are able to think in this manner, we will be always happy and blissful. If we are not able to do this, if our sense of the I, of the Jivatma, is attached with the body, with the actions which the body is doing, then what will happen is the senses, the mind will pull such a person in all directions. And when everything pulls him in all different directions, naturally, such a person is not going to be happy and peaceful, right? Similarly, another thing we can understand from this analogy is that if you say, like, you know, that how in the olden times all these kingdoms used to have their main cities which were protected by forts. So if that fort is to be strong, then its entrance should be such that it is able to thwart any attack. It should be strong enough to withstand attack from any outside agency. So, similarly, for this body of ours, we said that there are 9 openings, there are 9 doors. So, if these 9 doors, if we can prevent attack on those doors, then what will happen is the Jivatma who is inside will always be blissful. Now, the nature of this Navadvara is such that they are always susceptible to attack, right? So, if you become weak in these Navadvaras, weak in the sense not physically weak, but rather in terms of how you are controlling the actions of these 9. If that is weak, then what happens is the Atma will automatically get affected by all different things. But this Atma actually cannot be attacked. So it is actually superior to the body. But because that Atma is housed within this body, so if we don't take care of these Navadvara, we can get carried away by the attacks which are launched on it by all the external objects in the world. So, what is it that Krishna is trying to convey here to Arjuna in brief? He's trying to say that as long as this Dehi, as long as this Jivatma realizes that it is different from the Deha and it lives happily in that way without attachment, it will be happy. If it gets attached to the body, if the Jivatma starts saying that I am this body, then there will be sense of doership and that will cause us to get caught up in samsara. So this Dehi, the Jivatma, does not do any action, nor it motivates any kind of action. Whatever actions are happening because of the effects of the body. And where from these effects have come, they are the vasanas which have come from many previous births. They are to complete the set of accounts which are from our Papa Punya from all our previous births. Now, in the further next few shlokas, Krishna is going to talk about some more concept of this body and Atma. So, in the 14th shloka, he says, न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु पर स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते. So this embodied spirit, this Jivatma, who is master of the city of this body, he does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All of this is only enacted by the modes of material nature. Now, here, if you see in this shloka, there is this word Prabhu. So, there are many, some people, interpreters in certain sampradayas, this word Prabhu is said to mean the Lord, the one who is the Lord of the entire universe. So that is the way in which this word Prabhu is used. However, Swami Ramanujacharya gives, and many of the Vaishnava acharyas, they give the explanation for this word Prabhu as referring to the Atma itself, right? So Krishna is telling Arjuna that whatever actions are happening, you, that is the Jivatma. So here the word Prabhu is being used to refer to the Jivatma. What Jivatma? The Jivatma who is by its very nature pure. It is untouched by karma. That is referred to as Prabhu, as the Jivatma. Other commentators from other sampradayas, they say that this word Prabhu refers to God. So since we are following Swami Ramanujacharya's commentary, we will stick to this idea that the word Prabhu refers to the Jivatma. Now this Jivatma, by its very nature, is not doing any action. He is not making anybody else to do any action. So there is no doership for the Atma. So if Atma is doing, then how are we running around doing all these things? What is it that is responsible then? So the explanation given is that this basic nature of the Jivatma is to be untouched by everything around it. And if it is untouched with everything around it, then it is always in communion with the Paramatma and experiencing Ananda. Now, what happens is we are not able to experience this because in reality, this Jivatma has lost or has got covered by a lot of other things. So it's like if you have a mirror and the mirror is covered with a coating of dust, then whatever image is kept in front of the mirror will not be reflected clearly because of the dust on that mirror, isn't it? So in a similar manner, this Jivatma is actually in constant communion with the Lord and it is supposed to experience Ananda at all times. That is its basic Swarupa. However, because it has got housed into this body, because of the effect of the Trigunas, the Sattva, Raja, and Tamogunas, and because the vasanas, the swabhava of this body have rubbed off on this jivatma, so we think the jivatma is thinking that it is doing the action, it is making the efforts, it is doing the work, whatever is happening in it in this world. So, whatever, what is the meaning of saying that this Prabhu does not create activities? Means that Jivatma by itself is not the doer of the activities. The activities are done because of the effects of the Trigunas, because of the effect of the Vasanas. They are done by the body. So, if I say that I am not doing an action, similarly, it is equally true to say that I cannot make somebody else to act in a particular way. So just as I don't do the action, I am not responsible for making other people to act in a particular way. Nor is it that because of my action, these fruits are created. So if the Atma is not doing, then what is it that is doing all these things? How is it that there's a connection between karma and phala? How is it that things are happening in this world? It is because the gunas, the three gunas are there and they are rubbing off on the atma from many janmas. Like suppose we live in a particular house for many years, then we mold our life to suit the different facilities which are available in that particular house, isn't it? So suppose you go to a new house, then still for some time you will still have the same habits as what you had in the previous house. Or let us say in your house itself, you have arranged items in a particular way and you are used to using them from that particular place. Like say in the kitchen, you have kept your mixer at one point, you have kept your plates at another place, your vessels are somewhere else, your gas stove is in a particular place. Now let us say that you change the arrangement. For the first few days after you change the arrangement, your hand will automatically still be going back to the place where previously things were kept, isn't it? Similarly, what happens is because this Jivatma has been living in so many bodies over all these janmas, so the vasana of those bodies, it rubs off on the Atma. And so it starts thinking that I am the doer. How does this happen? Another example which the acharyas give here is, suppose I take a piece of iron and I hold it in the fire for a very long time. Soon you will start seeing that that iron piece, which was black in color and had a particular characteristic, after heating in the fire for a long time, it starts becoming more and more red in color, and soon it will start resembling the fire itself. So, also, this Atma, which has taken on so many bodies through different janmas, it starts assuming the identity of those bodies. And therefore, there is no awareness that this Jivatma is actually not the doer. So, whatever the body does, that Jivatma starts assuming that it is done by itself. And this, in other words, is because there is a covering of ignorance on that inner knowledge. So, that is what Krishna is explaining in the 15th shloka. So, he says, Nadatte kasya chit papam न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः. This embodied soul, this Jivatma, does not involve himself in the sinful or virtuous deeds of anyone. Living entities are deluded because their inner knowledge is covered by ignorance. So, always when it is told about the nature of the Atma, we say just like the Paramatma, this Jivatma is also having the same Swarupa of Ananda, unlimited bliss, and Jnana, total knowledge. So, if the knowledge is the Swarupa of the Atma, why is it that it has got deluded like this? Because there is a covering of ignorance which has covered. Now, here again, in the previous shloka, there was a word called Prabhu, which we said other people refer as God, whereas in this particular context, Swami Ramanujacharya says it refers to the Jivatma. Similarly, here also, this other word called Vibhu. So, in the previous shloka, it was the word Prabhu, and here the word Vibhu. Now, normally this word Vibhu refers to the Lord, because Vibhu refers to the property of being spread out over everything, of being spread out in space. So, the Lord, we say, is making up everything in this universe. So, that is why normally it is the Lord who is said to be Vibhu. But here, again, Swami Ramanujacharya uses this word Vibhu in the context of the Jivatma. He says that the Jivatma is one who is spread out everywhere. Now, when you say everywhere, this everywhere is spread out not in terms of space, but over time. So, what is the meaning here? Somebody who is spread out everywhere. So, this Vibhu does not refer to Paramatma, but it refers to the Atma. So, we know that Atma is Anuswarupa. It's very tiny. So, how do we say that it is spread out? So, here the Acharyas explain that Vibhu in this context, in this particular shloka, is giving the meaning that something is spread out over time. So when they say that Jivatma is Vibhu, what they mean is the Jivatma is spread out over time, over many janmas. So this Jivatma has been appearing janma after janma after janma with different shariras, with different bodies. So in that sense, the Atma is said to be Vibhu. So this Vibhu, this Jivatma is not involved, is not involved in doing good to anybody or bad to anybody, because that concept of good and bad and everything is only because of the vasanas which that particular sharira has brought along with it. This Jivatma does not have like, dislike, I want this, I want that, I don't want this. All these things are not actually impulses which are coming from the Jivatma. They are the impulses which are associated with the vasanas, with the trigunas, which have come because of this particular sharira which has been taken. And they are also a result of whatever was the vasanas and gunas in the previous janmas. So by like this, due to the combined effect of all the past janmas, this particular sharira also, so that actions are being done by the body. They are actually not being done by the Jivatma. So, but we think that we are doing. Why we think we are doing? Because our Jivatma's knowledge is covered by ignorance. And where this ignorance came from? From the vasanas, from the trigunas of all these so many past janmas. So, because of the vasanas and trigunas, the actual knowledge of the Atma is masked, it is covered, and therefore that Atma does not always exist with the supreme knowledge that I am not the doer. It starts assuming that because I am in this body and this body is doing all these things, I am the doer. So if somebody is able that to think, okay, if they lose this concept that I am the Sharira, so such a person is able to do action without doership. What is the meaning of this? I have made some error, some words are missing in this last sentence. So you please listen to what I'm saying and understand the meaning. Normally, we have this concept that we are not able to differentiate. I refers to the Atma and not this Sharira. I am the Atma and I am different from the Sharira. We don't have this concept at all times in our head. Why? Because we have this covering of ignorance which is there around us. So the Atma begins to believe, it is always existing in this belief that it is the same as the Sharira. So that is what is ignorance. But if one is able to lose this concept that I am same as Sharira, losing the concept that Atma is same as Sharira means what? Be beginning to understand that Atma is separate from Sharira. So if you learn to start seeing things like this, that the Atma is different from Sharira. There are different Shariras that the Atma is taking in different Janmas. All the actions which are done, all the doership is because of the senses and because of the Sharira. There is no doership for the Atma. When you begin to understand like this, then we are able to do action with without the sense of doership, without kartritva. Till I think that I am this body, I will think that I am the doer of all the actions which are happening. When I realize that I am not the body, I am the Sharira. I am not the Sharira and I am the Atma, then you will be able to see that actions which are happening are because of the Sharira. The Atma has nothing to do with that Sharira. So then you learn to start detaching yourself from those actions. Then you learn to start, uh, then you learn how to stay unaffected by whatever is the outcome of those actions. Then you learn to do actions without having any kind of inferior expectation from those actions. So this, why is Krishna telling Arjuna all this? Because he wants Arjuna to start learning to differentiate between the Atma and the Sharira. In one sense, he wants Arjuna to see that if he kills Bhishma and Dronacharya and everybody, he is only killing their Sharira, he is not killing their Atma. On the other hand, he also wants Arjuna to realize that if you are going to do this action of killing, then it is something which is not going to touch, it is not actually being done by your Atma, it is being done by the Sharira. Then why must Arjuna do all those things? Because it is his dharma as a Kshatriya to perform those actions. So, understanding that it is his dharma without thinking that I am killing these people, but understanding that in this Sharira as Arjuna, it is his duty to kill those who are standing on the side of Adharma, to restore dharma. To understand that, Arjuna must know this concept. So that is how Arjuna must fight. He must fight because it is his duty, because it is his dharma to fight as a Kshatriya. He must not think that I am killing these people. I am so great that I have the ability to kill these people. I am going to teach them a lesson. That should not be his thought. But rather, he should realize that what is happening by the will of the Lord. What is happening is because of the karma and the karma phala of everybody involved in this equation. That is how Krishna wants Arjuna to see this whole thing. He should act, he should perform karma, but without taking doership for the karma. When To be able to do that, to be able to separate out himself from the action, to give up that sense of doership of the action, he should be able to see that the actions are being done by the Sharira, that those actions are actually not touching the Atma in any way. That is what Krishna wants Arjuna to understand. Now, here, the acharyas also give the example that how do we say that, this kind of knowledge that we talked about, that we said that the Atma is actually not connected with whatever is happening to the body. But because of ignorance, it thinks that it is the body itself, isn't it? So here the example given is how at the time of the fight between Vali and Sugriva, we know this entire story of how Vali had wrongfully accused Sugriva of trying to cheat him. And he thought that Sugriva had trapped him inside the cave so that he could become the king. And when he came back from there, then Sugriva begged forgiveness and said, "Please forgive me. I didn't know. I thought you were killed by the Rakshasa, and therefore I closed the cave and I came away. And everybody in the kingdom forced me to become the king." So he begged forgiveness from Vali, but Vali was not prepared to forgive Sugriva. So what he did, he banished Sugriva. He said, "I will kill you. You go away from here." And Sugriva had to go and live in that particular area, which was the only place where Vali could not come. So when Lord Rama and Lakshmana passed by that way as they were searching for Sita, then Sugriva became friends with Rama, and Rama promised him that I will help you get back your kingdom and your wife from the clutches of Vali. Now, why it was important for Rama to do this? Because what Vali had done was a wrong thing for a Raja to do. He had been the Raja, and when his brother came and fell at his feet, he should have given. It is one of the biggest rules of Dharma that whenever somebody seeks Sharanagati, seeks Sharan, seeks, acceptance and what you say, support or some kind of protection from someone who is in a position where they are ruling, then it is that ruler's duty to take care of that person who has become Sharanagat to him. But Bali failed to do that. And that is why it was important that he should have been punished. So Lord Rama encouraged Sugriva to call Vali for a fight. And then there was a fight that happened. And all that time, till that fight was going on, Vali only harbored enmity in his heart for Sugriva, right? However, at that time, when that fateful arrow from Lord Rama struck his heart, and Vali fell down and he was dying now, at that moment of death, he understood what was his mistake. And at that point, he told Lord Rama that this Sugriva is my brother, and now I'm not going to be here anymore. You please take care of him and you make sure that he gets what is due to him. So you please take care of him. You please protect him. That is what Vali asked from Lord Rama. Now, how is it that this Vali, throughout the so many years, he had been enemy of Sugriva? How is it that at the point when he was dying, he asked Rama that you please take care of my brother Sugriva and please give him protection? How did this enmity, which was there for so many years, how did it disappear at the time of death? It disappeared, the acharyas say, because at that point of time, Bali became aware of the reality. All along, he was identifying himself as this body of this Vanara king Vali, and therefore he was caught up in all those emotions and likes and dislikes which were because of that particular body. So he wanted to rule the kingdom. He thought that Sugriva is out to harm him. He wanted to punish Sugriva. All those things were his understanding when he was living. But because all along that covering of ignorance had covered the true knowledge, now as it was time for his death. Now, slowly, when the Jivatma began separating from that Sharira, it has to go forward on its onward journey, isn't it, at the time of death? So, at that moment of death, as the Jivatma started to get separated from the Deha, at that point of time, that covering of ignorance was taken away and the true knowledge dawned on him. So then he realized that I am not this Sharira. So when that knowledge comes that I am not the Sharira, then whatever likes, dislikes, enmity, friendship, everything associated with that Sharira is no longer seen as mine. And that is the reason, as that reality dawns, when that true nature comes forth, then there is no room for any negative emotion. And that is why at that time, Bali was able to say to Rama that, please take care of this Sugriva. Because he realized that whatever enmity and all these things that I had were because of my ignorance. So, this is an example for us to understand that by its nature, the Atma does not have any action. It does not have doership of any action. It is the body which is doing the things. And therefore, if you are able to see this, that it is the body which is doing, or let us say, in not only in terms of us doing the action, but in terms of somebody else doing something to us, then that also hurts us many times. So, if we are able to say that whatever, now let me say that suppose I think that my child is behaving wrongly, or my spouse is behaving in an improper way, or somebody, my colleagues at work, or someone in the world is behaving like this towards me, and I start getting too much irritated, or I start getting worked up over how they are treating me, then at that time it will do us a lot of good to understand that in that person also there is one Jivatma. And actually, that Jivatma is not the doer of anything. But because of the vasanas which are associated with that body, that person is being induced to behave in that manner. So, just as I don't have doership of anything, that person is also not having doership of these things. If we learn to see things like this, now does it mean then many times some people may then use this as a escapist method, isn't it? To say they will do whatever they want and then say it was the not the Atma which did, it was because of my vasana. Not that way. It should not be used in that angle. But rather, this idea is to be used to develop, to cultivate the spirit of detachment, to not be attached to our actions. Although whether it is the Sharira which is doing, whether whatever may be the case, it still remains, the fact remains that whatever actions have to be done, they have to be done as prescribed by the Shastras, isn't it? So we cannot use this concept to do wrong actions and then to justify those actions saying that, oh, it was my Sharira, it was my Vasanas, it was the Trigunas which made me do that. That is not the way to use this concept. But rather, this idea has to be used to understand that I need not carry the weight of all these expectations out of a particular action. I should not think that I am the doer. And when I give up this doership and give up the expectation from the action, then without being burdened by these things, I will be able to act properly in the way that Shastra expects me to act without getting any attachment to this particular action. And with that detached spirit, we will be able to act more in line with what the Lord expects us to do. So that should be our bhava whenever we are doing any particular actions. So with that, we have come to the end of our time for today. In the next few shlokas, Lord Krishna will explain further about how this sense of doership can become a block, how it can be overcome. He has been telling so many things now. So, here in this particular shlokas, what we saw today, Krishna has been advising Arjuna to be able, he has been advising Arjuna that see, these things are because of the nature of the vasanas and the past karmas which are making the body to do action. So the action is for the body, it is not for the atma. So you understand this, and by that you give up the sense of doership. So we will see what more Krishna has to explain in this regard in the further shlokas, so that we know how actually karma yoga is to be practiced. So we'll stop here for today. By expressing kritagnyata, we will end our satsang. Let us offer gratitude, kritagnyata, at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you, everybody, for joining the satsang. We will meet again next Thursday. And in case you feel that any of these things which we are talking about, some of them may seem very theoretical, and it may seem like they are things which we are finding it a little difficult to actually understand, then it is okay if we don't understand all the details of it. Because again, our level of understanding will be limited by how much, uh, sattva guna there is in our makeup. So if we have lot of sattva guna, we will be able to understand more of it. If we have lesser sattva guna and we have more of rajotamo guna, we may not be able to catch the sukshma things in these concepts. So whether it is for you who are the listeners or for me who is the teller, again, I'm only telling that which has been heard from the acharyas. That doesn't mean that I have complete understanding of it either. So that is what we are able to grasp because of our present situation. However, the Lord is always there with us, right? Like today, I was listening to one pravachan by somebody online, and at that point of time, they were explaining how if we do whatever we can with utmost sincerity towards the Lord, right? Then the Lord will see. See, actually, by whatever action we are doing, we are highly incapable of reaching the Lord. But if we continue to do with sincerity, thinking that we are doing the best that we can, right? The Lord will see us. And he may find it funny that the small, tiny efforts that we are putting, and he may laugh, but he will be pleased with our sincerity. He will say that how much longer will this particular atma suffer like this? How much longer is this person going to struggle and struggle and struggle? Oh, so it is not possible for him or her to come and reach me by their own effort. Okay, so I will bless him with the grace to be able to reach me. I will bless this person with the grace to be able to do more sadhana. Like that, by the Lord's grace only it has to happen. But to earn that grace of the Lord, we have to show our sincerity in making effort to get that grace. So by the Lord's grace, we will reach further. So let us not feel that even if some things are there which sound very intellectual and which are not seeming very clear to us at times, it's okay. There is no problem. We have to try and listen and understand, and the Lord will give us whatever understanding is required at those particular times to be able to continue forward on our sadhana. So let us pray that Lord's grace will always be on us. So thank you everybody for attending, and we will meet again next Thursday. Namaskar.